Zola opens her eyes. The ceiling is low and white, with a small patch of dampness in the corner. She stares at it for a minute, maybe two, trying to remember where she is. Then it dawns on her. She's in the staff room, in the building where she works, in a country where she knows no one. She sits up in bed. The room is small, almost like a cage. A bed, a closet, a chair. The window overlooks the courtyard, which is always dark because the high fence blocks the sun. Zola rubs her face with her palms. She's 28 years old. She moved here a month ago, and every day she wakes up with the same feeling, like she's made a mistake. Voices are heard behind the wall. Men's voices. Security. They're always here, always close. Zola freezes and listens. They speak a language she barely understands yet. Too fast. Too harsh. Sometimes she catches individual words, but the meaning eludes her. A voice laughs loudly. Zola shudders. She doesn't know what they're talking about, doesn't know if they're joking or not, but the laughter sounds rough, and she feels uneasy. She sits on the bed and looks at the door. The door is locked. She has a key, but it doesn't help. Today is her second day at her new job. The first day, she simply followed the manager around and observed what needed to be done. She memorized the hallways, the rooms, the rules. There are many rules, all sorts of them. Zola feels her heart beat faster when she thinks about leaving. The voices behind the wall fade. They're probably going on their rounds. Zola stands, walks to the door, and presses her ear to the cold wooden surface. Silence. She exhales slowly. She looks at herself in the small mirror on the dresser. Her red hair is sticking out in all directions, the curls tangled overnight. She tries to smooth it with her hands, but it's no use. It needs brushing, it needs water, it needs time. She sighs. Last night, as she went to bed, she thought of home. The real home where her sisters remained, where her mother cooked in the kitchen and danced when no one was looking. Zola smiled at the memory. Her mother always said that dance is a language everyone understands. But here, in this room, behind this door, that language seems foreign. Zola gets dressed. Her uniform hangs neatly on hangers in the closet. A dark dress, a white apron. She buttons it, adjusts her collar. She looks at her hands, dark skin, long fingers. Her mother used to say she had dancer's hands. Zola laughed then. She's not in the mood for laughter now. She approaches the door, places her hand on the handle, and freezes. There are no voices to be heard. Maybe she can go out. Maybe today will be easier. She opens the door and steps out into the hallway. A woman is waiting for her in a small room next to the kitchen. Her name is Ms. Pack, and she's the manager. She's about 50, thin, with sharp features and eyes that seem to see right through her. Zola immediately understands. It's best not to lie to this woman. Mrs. Pack sits at the table, a notepad in front of her. She gestures to a chair for Zola. Zola sits down, keeping her back straight, just as her mother taught her. "You've been here a month," says Mrs. Pack. Her voice is even, emotionless. "But you only really started working yesterday. Today, I'll tell you the rules. Listen carefully. I don't like to repeat myself." Zola nods, trying to remember every word. First, you never look the owner in the eye. Never. If he enters the room, you lower your head and keep working. If he speaks to you, you look at the floor. Understood? Zola nods, but inside she feels uneasy. She can't look him in the eye, as if she were a dog or a slave. She pushes the thought away. Second, the second floor is for cleaning only. You go up there, do your job, and then come right back down. No delays. Don't peek into rooms. Don't open closed doors. Don't touch personal belongings. You're invisible there. Mrs. Park pauses and looks at Zola. Zola feels her gaze on her skin. Third, no music, nowhere. Not in your room, not in the kitchen, not while cleaning. There is silence in this house. That's the owner's rule. Zola wants to ask why, but closes her mouth just in time. Mrs. Park reads the question in her eyes and answers herself. Don't ask. Just do as you're told. Music is forbidden here. If the guards hear a sound coming from your room, you'll be in trouble. If the owner hears it, you'll be fired that same day. Do you understand? Zola nods. She understands only one thing. The rules here are strange. Very strange. But she needs this job. The money she was promised is 3 times more than she could earn at home. That's worth the wait. Fourth, Ms. Park bends her finger. You don't talk to the guards. They don't bother you, and you don't bother them. If any of them say anything unnecessary to you, you come to me immediately. Don't try to decide for yourself. Zola remembers the rough laughter behind the wall this morning. She feels a little scared. Fifth, you don't go into the part of the house where the host's guests live. If they come, you stay in your room and don't come out until you're told. Someone else brings them food. What guests? Zola blurts out. Mrs. Park looks at her for a long moment. You don't need to know. Just do as I say. Zola lowers her eyes. She's already broken the rule. She asked a question. She won't do it again. Ms. Park stands up. The briefing is over. Go to work. Today you're cleaning the office on the first floor. Be careful. Don't touch anything on the desk. Dust it and leave. Zola gets up and walks to the door. She turns around at the threshold. Ms. Park, she says quietly. What is the owner's name? The manager looks at her with surprise. Then something resembling a smile appears on her face. You don't need to know his name. You will never call him by his name. If you have to address him, and that's unlikely, you will say, Sir. That's the only way. Now go. Zola steps out into the hallway and heads toward the office. Her head is buzzing with rules. No looking, no touching, no talking, no music. She feels like she's in prison, but a prison with a good salary. She opens the door to the office and freezes. The study is large and bright. It's completely different from the other rooms in the house. It has tall, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the morning sun floods everything. Zola sees expensive furniture, ceiling-high bookcases, and a large dark wood desk, and a man in a chair by the window. Zola freezes in the doorway. Her heart skips a beat. She recalls Mrs. Park's words. If he enters the room, you lower your head. But he doesn't enter. He's already here, sitting with his back to her, looking out the window. It's him, the master. Zola doesn't know what to do. Leave? Stay? She stands in the doorway like a statue. She holds a duster and a small bucket. She feels her fingers clench involuntarily. The man doesn't turn around. He simply sits in the chair, crossing his legs. He's wearing a thin, dark blue silk robe. His black hair is neatly combed back. He's thin, too thin even. Because of this, from behind, he looks younger than he is. Zola can't see his face, only the back of his head, the line of his shoulders, the hand resting on the armrest. His fingers are long and calm. He doesn't move. A second passes. Another. A third. Zola doesn't breathe. She waits for him to turn around, to say something, to chase her away. But he remains silent. He gives no indication that he's aware of her presence. Zola takes a small step back. She wants to leave and come back later. But then she thinks, if she leaves, and he sees that she got scared and ran away, is that also a violation? She doesn't know the rules for this situation. Mrs. Park didn't say anything. She stands and looks at his back. The room is quiet. So quiet that Zola can hear her own breathing. The man does not turn around. And then Zola realizes, for him, she's not here. She's invisible. Just like Mrs. Park said, he's looking out the window, thinking about something else, and she's just part of the decor, furniture that's come to dust. Zola exhales slowly. She walks into the room, trying to be quiet. She approaches the bookcase, opens the bucket, and wets a rag. She begins wiping the shelves. She watches him out of the corner of her eye. He's not moving. He's sitting just as he was. The sun is shining in his face, but he doesn't squint. He just stares at one spot. Who is he? What does he do? Why does he live alone in such a big house? Zola thinks about this as she runs a rag over the spines of books. The books are old, in languages she doesn't know. She finishes with the first cabinet and moves on to the second. She needs to pass it to get to the table. She pauses for a second, then makes up her mind. She walks past the chair, looking straight ahead, as she was taught. And at that moment, he turns his head. Zola feels it in her skin. She can't see it, but she knows he's looking at her. Her heart pounds somewhere in her throat. She continues walking without turning. She reaches the table and begins wiping the edge. The room is quiet, but the silence is different now. Before, he simply didn't notice it. Now he knows it's here. Zola works quickly but carefully. She's afraid to look up. She wipes the table, straightens the papers that are already lying flat. She feels like his gaze is burning into her back. Finally, she finishes. She gathers her things and heads for the door. As she approaches the exit, she can't resist and looks up for a second. He looks straight at her. Black eyes, dark as coal. His face is pale, calm, emotionless. He doesn't frown, doesn't smile. He just looks. Zola is the first to look away. She lowers her head and leaves the office. She closes the door behind her and leans against the wall in the hallway. Her heart is pounding as if she had just run a kilometer. She saw his eyes, just for a second, but it was enough to understand. This man was not like everyone else. The next day, Mrs. Park gives Zola a new task, cleaning the master's bedroom. You come in, do everything quickly and quietly. Don't touch personal things. Just make the bed, dust. Check that everything is in place. Understood? Zola nods. Her insides clench. His bedroom. A place where outsiders are forbidden to enter. But now she's an outsider, the one who has to clean there. She climbs to the second floor. The corridors are wider here, the carpet softer, the lighting dim. Zola walks slowly, counting the doors. She's told it's the third one on the left. She stops in front of the door. The wood is dark, the handle shiny, without fingerprints. Zola raises her hand and knocks. Silence. She opens the door and enters. The bedroom is large, a huge bed covered in dark silk. Wardrobes line the entire wall, a window overlooking the garden, and a scent. Light, barely perceptible. Expensive cologne and something else. Maybe paper, maybe leather. Zola stands in the doorway and watches. The room is very personal. You can sense a person here. Not a master, not a lord, but simply a person who sleeps, wakes, lives. She steps inside, starts with the bed, carefully adjusts the blanket, fluffs the pillows. She tries not to think about him sleeping on them, that his head lies here every night. Then she moves to the nightstand, a small table next to the bed. On it is a lamp, a couple of books, and a photograph. Ash freezes. A photograph in a silver frame. It's of a woman, young, beautiful, with long dark hair. She's smiling at the camera, but the photograph is torn in half, carefully, neatly. Someone had torn the photograph right down the middle. Only half of the woman remained. The other half, where someone should have been next to her, was torn away. Zola stares at the photograph and can't look away. Who is this woman? Why is her photo torn? And why is he keeping it if he tore it? She hears voices in the hallway. Security. If they come in and see her standing there looking at her personal belongings, there will be trouble. Zola quickly takes the photograph, opens the nightstand drawer, and places it inside. Her hands are shaking. She closes the drawer and steps away. She continues cleaning, but her thoughts are confused. She dusts the closet, adjusts the curtains, but her gaze keeps returning to the nightstand, to the drawer where the torn woman lies. Who did this? Himself? Or someone else? And why keep something torn? Zola finishes cleaning and leaves the bedroom. In the hallway, she encounters a security guard. He gives her a long look. Zola lowers her eyes and quickly walks toward the stairs. She thinks about this photograph all day. There's a small room in the building where the staff eats. Simple tables, plastic chairs, and a coffee machine. Zola comes here for lunch because she has nowhere else to go. There are 3 of us here today. The woman who works in the kitchen, elderly and silent. The man who tends the garden, he barely speaks her language. And the security guard. The guard is young, about 30. His hair is short, and his eyes are wary. He looks at Zola as she enters. She feels his gaze, but pretends not to notice. Zola takes the food and sits at the far table. She eats silently, looking at her plate. A minute later, the guard comes up and sits down opposite. "You're the new maid, right?" he asks. Zola nods. She doesn't want to talk, but Mrs. Park didn't say she can't answer questions. She just said she can't initiate conversation. "What's your name?" he asks. "Ash." The guard nods. He looks at her as if deciding something. "Listen, Zola," he says more quietly. "I want to tell you something. Be careful." Zola looks up. "Why?" The guard glances at the door, making sure no one is there. "The previous maid, the one before you, she quit very suddenly." "Well, she quit and she quit," Zola shrugs. "People change jobs." The guard shakes his head. "You don't understand. She didn't warn anyone. She didn't file a report. It's just that one morning her things weren't in her room, and no one said anything." Zola feels a coldness inside her. Maybe she just left? Maybe, the security guard agrees. But I've been working here for 3 years, and during that time, 2 maids quit just like that, without warning, just disappeared. He stands up. "I'm not saying anything. Just be careful, and don't ask unnecessary questions." He leaves. Zola sits at the table and stares at her plate. The food has gone cold. Her appetite is gone. The woman in the kitchen looks up from her plate and gives Zola a long look. Then she lowers her head and continues eating. Zola thinks about the photograph in the drawer, about the torn woman, about the 2 maids who disappeared. She thinks that maybe she should have stayed home. Zola can't sleep. She lies on the bed in her small room and stares at the ceiling. The clock shows 2:30 in the morning. It's quiet behind the wall. The guards are probably asleep or somewhere else. The thoughts haunt her. The guard's words, the torn photograph, the owner's dark eyes staring at her in the office. It all plays in her head like a broken record. Zola closes her eyes, tries to breathe evenly, counts silently, and suddenly he hears a sound. At first she thinks she's imagining it, but the sound repeats. Somewhere far away, but clearly audible in the night's silence. Footsteps? Voices? No, not voices. Like a door opening. Zola sits up in bed. Her heart beats faster. She looks at the door to her room. It's dark. She can't see anything. The sound is approaching. Footsteps. Heavy, masculine. Several people. Zola freezes. Who could it be at this hour? Security guards patrol on a schedule, but they're usually quiet. But these steps are quick, sharp. She can't take it anymore. She gets up and goes to the door. Carefully, trying not to creak, she opens it a crack. The hallway is dark, but at the end, near the entrance to the house, a light is on. Zola sees silhouettes. 3 people. They are standing, talking in hushed tones. One of them enters the house. Zola recognizes him. It's the owner. He's wearing dark clothes, not the silk ones he wore during the day. Plain, simple, and a shirt. A light shirt, visible even in the dim light. There are dark spots on the shirt. Zola stares and can't look away. The spots are large. On the chest, on the sleeve. In the dark, they appear black, but Zola knows they're not black. She'd seen stains like these before. Long ago, in another life, when a neighbor was shot in their neighborhood, blood on light-colored fabric looks exactly like that. Zola covers her mouth with her hand to keep from screaming. The owner enters the house. The guards close the door. The lights go out. Silence falls. Zola stands by the door, unable to move. Her heart is pounding somewhere in her throat. She saw blood. There was blood on him. Lots of blood. She closes the door and clicks the lock. She goes to the bed and sits on the floor, hugging her knees to her chest. And she sits there until morning, staring into the darkness. She doesn't sleep for a minute. In the morning, Zola feels exhausted. Her eyes are drooping. Her head is heavy. She drinks cold tap water, trying to regain her composure. We need to work. We need to pretend that nothing happened, that she didn't see what she saw. Zola dresses and goes out into the hallway. The house is quiet, ordinary. Security is on duty, greeting everyone as usual. Mrs. Pak gives them their assignment: prepare the kitchen, check the ingredients, and set the table for breakfast for the master. Zola goes into the kitchen. It's a large room, all white tiles and shiny steel. It smells of cleanliness and expensive food. She opens the fridge and checks what's in there. She takes out eggs, butter, and vegetables. She starts cooking. Her hands are busy, but her mind is elsewhere. She thinks about last night, about the blood on his shirt, about what he did in the middle of the night. Who were these people he came with, and why weren't the guards even surprised? Zola shakes her head, trying to clear her head. She can't think about that. Her job is to cook and clean, not ask questions, be invisible. She finishes breakfast. She covers the tray and carries it to the dining room. The owner is not there yet. She places the tray on the table and leaves. During the day, she works in the living room, then in the library. She does everything automatically. She wipes, washes, straightens. But inside, she's buzzing. By evening, the anxiety grows stronger. Zola dreads the coming of night. She's afraid to hear footsteps again. She's afraid to see him again. She finishes work late. The house falls silent. The security guards go on night duty. Zola sits in her room and stares at the wall. The silence is oppressive. She thinks about how music can't be played in this house. Never. Nowhere. She looks at her phone. There's music in her headphones. Lots of music she downloaded back home. She misses it. The sounds that fill the void. The rhythm that makes her body move. Zola takes the headphones. She looks at them for a long time. Then she puts them on. A soft melody begins to play in her ears. The same one her mother used to dance to. Zola closes her eyes. The music fills her head, driving away anxiety. She feels her body relax. She stands up, carefully, so as not to make any noise. She begins to move to the beat. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. She simply sways, shifts from foot to foot. Then the music changes. The rhythm becomes faster. Zola can't resist. She starts dancing, quietly, almost without a sound, only the rustle of feet on the floor. She dances in the deserted kitchen. The light from the refrigerator falls on the floor. Zola moves in this light, forgetting everything. Blood, rules, fear. Only music, only rhythm, only her. She closes her eyes and dances. Zola dances and hears nothing but the music in her headphones. The world has disappeared. There is only rhythm, only movement, only the warmth in her muscles. She turns, waves her hand, steps forward. Her eyes are closed. She imagines herself standing on stage, her mother watching from the audience and smiling. The music plays. Her body moves on its own. Zola feels free. For the first time in a month, she feels like herself. Then she opens her eyes and freezes. He stands in the kitchen doorway. Zola didn't hear him approach. She didn't hear his footsteps. He just stood there, leaning his shoulder against the doorframe, looking at her. How long has he been here? How much has he seen? Zola freezes in place. Her arms drop. Her body becomes unresponsive. Her heart sinks into her stomach, into her heels. She remembers the rule. No music, ever. She'll be fired today. She slowly raises her hands and takes out her headphones. The music becomes audible to everyone, a quiet rhythm emanating from the small speakers. Zola quickly turns off her phone. A silence falls in the kitchen. It's so thick you could cut it with a knife. Zola stands and looks at the floor. As Mrs. Park taught her, don't look into the eyes. Lower your head. Wait. She waits for him to scream, or call security, or just point to the door. A second passes, another, a third. He is silent. Zola can't take it anymore. She looks up. He looks at her. The same black eyes as in the office, but now there is no coldness in them. Something different. Something she does not understand. He is silent. He just looks. And then he speaks. Quiet. Calm. Almost a whisper. Don't stop. Zola can't believe her ears. She looks at him, trying to figure out if she misheard. He doesn't move. He waits. Keep dancing, he says. I'm not leaving. But don't stop. Zola stands there, unable to move. Is this a trap? A test? Maybe he wants her to break a rule and then punish her? But he just watches. Waits. And Zola makes up her mind. She puts her headphones back on, turns on the music, closes her eyes for a second to collect herself, and starts dancing. Slowly at first, hesitantly. But the music takes hold of her, as it always does. And within a minute, she's no longer thinking about him, no longer thinking about the rules. She's simply moving. She dances for herself, but she knows he's watching. She feels his gaze with every cell of her skin. This is weird. This is scary. This is wrong. But it makes the heart beat faster. Zola is dancing. The music is playing in her headphones, but she can't hear it the same way anymore, because now she can feel his gaze. He's standing in the doorway, watching, not moving, not speaking, just looking. Zola takes a step, turns, waves her hand. Her body moves on its own, but her thoughts are confused. Why is he here? Why isn't he driving her away? Why is he looking? She's afraid to open her eyes, afraid to see him again. But the music ends, and she has to stop. She stands in the middle of the kitchen, breathing heavily. Sweat has broken out on her forehead. She doesn't look up. Silence. Then footsteps. He walks towards her. Zola clenches inside. Something's about to happen. He's about to say something. He stops next to her, very close. She smells it. The same one as in his bedroom. Expensive cologne and something else. What's your name? He asks. The voice is quiet, low, calm. Zola, she whispers. Zola, he repeats. You dance well? She doesn't know what to say. Thank you? Sorry? She doesn't know what to do at all. You broke the rule, he says. My heart sinks. Here it is. Now. I know, Zola whispers. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. He is silent. Then he says, You will. Zola looks up, unmindful of the rule, unthinking. She simply stares at him. He stands close. She sees his face, pale, tired. There are shadows under his eyes, as if he hasn't slept for a long time. But his gaze is different. Not cold, not angry. Alive. You will dance, he says. Every night. Here. I will come and watch. Zola doesn't believe it. But the rule? Music. I'm changing the rules, he says. Now your rule is this. You dance. Every night. You don't tell anyone. You just come here and dance. He looks at her for a long moment. Do you agree? Zola looks into his black eyes and is speechless. She nods. Just nods. Because she can't speak. He nods in response, turns around, and leaves. Zola stands alone in the middle of the kitchen. Her heart is pounding so hard, it seems to be heard throughout the entire house. She doesn't know what just happened, She doesn't know what it means. She doesn't know whether to be scared or happy, but she knows one thing for sure. Tomorrow night, she will come out into the kitchen again, and she will dance. Because he asked. Because he said not to stop. Zola doesn't sleep all night. She lies on the bed and stares at the ceiling. The same thing keeps going through her head. He saw her dancing. He didn't kick her out. He told her to come again. This is beyond my comprehension. Zola thinks about his eyes, about the way he looked at her. Not like a maid, not like a servant, something different. She doesn't know what to call it, but it frightens and attracts her at the same time. Towards morning, she falls asleep. She dreams of dark eyes and a quiet voice. Don't stop. She wakes up to a knock on the door. Her heart sinks. She looks at her watch. It's almost noon. She overslept. Zola jumps up, quickly throws on her robe, and opens the door. Mrs. Pak stands on the threshold. The manager looks at her with her usual gaze, cold, emotionless. Zola prepares for the worst. She'll tell her to pack her things now. Get dressed and come to the small living room, says Mrs. Pak. I have something to talk about. She leaves. Zola closes the door and leans her back against it. Her heart is pounding. This is the end. He's changed his mind. Now she's going to be fired. She dresses slowly. Uniform, apron, shoes. She looks at herself in the mirror. Her face is pale under dark skin. There are circles under her eyes. She looks as if she hasn't slept in a week. Zola goes out into the hallway. She goes into the small living room. Every step is heavy. She opens the door. Inside, Mrs. Park is sitting at a small table. In front of her are papers and a cup of coffee. She looks up at Zola. Sit down, she says. Zola sits on the edge of her chair, ready to strike. Starting today, you have a new schedule, Ms. Pak says evenly. You work nights, from 10 in the evening until 6 in the morning. Zola looks at her and doesn't believe her. But why? Master's orders, Mrs. Pak replies. She doesn't show any emotion, but Zola senses she doesn't like it. Your duties are changing. At night, you're in charge of the kitchen. Cook if needed, keep order, sleep during the day. Zola is silent. She understands. It's because of the dancing. He made it so she could dance at night, so no one would disturb her. Any questions? Ms. Pak asks. No, Zola says quietly. Then you're free. Rest today. Tomorrow you'll be out tonight. Zola stands up. At the door, she turns around. Mrs. Park is looking at her papers, but Zola knows. She can feel her gaze. Zola goes out into the hallway and goes to her room. Her thoughts are confused. She wasn't paid. She was given a new job, a night job, to dance. Who is she now? A maid? A night dancer? She doesn't know. But something warm spreads inside her chest. The next day, Zola wakes up late. The clock shows 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She slept for almost 12 hours. The sleepless night has taken its toll. She lies, listening to the silence. During the day, the house lives its own life. Footsteps, voices, the sound of running water. But in her room, it's quiet. There's a knock on the door. Zola gets up and opens it. Standing in the doorway was one of the workers Zola had seen a couple of times, a young Asian woman who barely spoke her language. She was carrying a large bag. This is for you, the girl says, and hands over the package. Zola takes it. The girl leaves without even looking at her. Zola closes the door, sits down on the bed, and opens the bag. Inside are clothes. Not a maid's uniform, completely different. She takes out her things. Soft dark gray sweatpants, a loose t-shirt made of thin cotton, a lightweight long-sleeved sweater, and shoes, soft dance slippers, almost like ballet flats, only modern. Zola looks at all this and understands. It's from him. He told me to bring her some other clothes, comfortable ones, something she can dance in. She presses the t-shirt to her face. The fabric is soft, expensive. It smells new. No one has ever bought her things like this. Zola sits on the bed and looks at the clothes. She doesn't know what to think. He's the boss. He has blood on his shirts. He has secrets in locked rooms. But he brings her things so she can dance comfortably. Who is he? And who is she to him now? In the evening, she puts on new clothes. She stands in front of the mirror and looks at herself. In these clothes, she doesn't look like a maid. She looks like herself, like the Zola who danced at home, in her mother's kitchen. At 10 o'clock in the evening, she goes out into the hallway. She goes to the kitchen. The house is quiet. The guards are in place, but they look at her differently. Zola feels it in her bones. She walks into the kitchen, turns on the light, sits down on a chair and waits. Will he come? Or was it just a dream? Zola sits in the kitchen for half an hour. 40 minutes. An hour. He doesn't come. She looks at her watch, then at the door. Maybe she misunderstood? Maybe he meant something else? Maybe she made the whole thing up? Zola gets up, goes to the stove, and pours herself some water. She drinks and looks out the window at the dark courtyard. Inside, there's emptiness and a strange disappointment. She decides to wait a little longer. She turns on music in her headphones, but doesn't dance. She just sits and listens. After an hour and a half, she gives in. She turns off the light and goes to her room. The next 3 nights, the same thing happens. She comes, sits, waits. He doesn't show up. On the 4th night, Zola notices something strange. As she walks to the kitchen, the guard in the hallway stares at her for a moment too long. Not just staring, but following her with his eyes, until she disappears around the corner. Zola senses it. She turns around, but the guard is already looking the other way. In the kitchen, she can't calm down. She approaches the door and peers out cautiously. A security guard is standing at the end of the hallway, talking to someone on the radio. He looks in her direction. Ash quickly hides. She thinks about what that guard said in the dining room, about the 2 maids who disappeared, about how you can't trust anyone here. She decides to be more careful. When she walks down the hallway, she tries not to show fear, but she feels the eyes on her. Always now. On the 5th night, he comes. Zola sits on a chair, looking out the window, and doesn't hear footsteps. She just senses someone's presence. She turns around. He's standing in the doorway, in the same dark clothes. But today, no stains. Just a tired man in the middle of the night. "You came," he says. "You said to come," Zola replies. He nods. He goes inside and sits down at the table, in the same place he sat the first night. "Dance," he says. Zola gets up, turns on the music, and dances. She dances for him, and for herself, and she feels his gaze every second. The morning after a night of dancing, Zola returns to her room in the early hours of the morning, but can't sleep. The music and his silent gaze are buzzing in her head. She falls asleep only when the sun is already high. He wakes up from a knock. It's Mrs. Pak again. The master asks for coffee. "From you personally. Make it and take it to the office." Zola dresses quickly. She goes to the kitchen and makes coffee the best she can. Strong, with a little foam on top. She places the cup on a tray and carries it into the office. Knocking. Voice from inside. "Come in." She opens the door. He's sitting at the table, wearing the same silk robe as the first time. He has papers in front of him, but he's looking at her. Zola approaches the table, puts down her cup, wants to leave. "Sit down," he says. She freezes. She looks at him. "There's a cup for you," he says, pointing to the edge of the table. There is indeed a second cup there, exactly the same. Zola doesn't know what to do. Maids don't sit with their masters. It's against all the rules. "Sit down," he repeats, calmly, but in a way that makes it hard to argue. Zola sits down on the very edge of the chair opposite him. She takes the cup. Her hands tremble slightly. He looks at her, drinks his coffee in silence. "You dance well," he says finally. "I don't understand the music, but I understand the movement." Zola doesn't know what to say. "Thank you? Is that right? Why are you dancing?" he asks. The question is simple, but coming from him, it sounds different, as if he really wants to know. Zola is silent for a second. Then she says, "My mother danced. In the kitchen, while she was cooking. She didn't have a stereo, just a small radio. She used to say that dance is a language everyone understands." He listens. He doesn't interrupt. He looks straight into your eyes. "She died 3 years ago," Zola continues, "and I dance to feel like she's near." The office is quiet. The sun is shining through the window. He sits opposite her and looks at her as if he sees her for the first time. "Your mother was right," he says quietly. "I don't understand the words, but I understand the dance." They drink coffee in silence. Zola feels warmth spreading inside. Not from the coffee. They've been sitting in the office for half an hour. Their cups are almost empty. Zola thinks it's time to leave, but he won't let her. "You said Mom was dancing in the kitchen," he says. "Where's your father?" Zola looks into the cup. "I don't know him. He left before I was born." He nods. No regret in his eyes, just acceptance of the fact. "I didn't have a father either," he says. Zola looks up. He's talking about himself for the first time. "I was raised by my grandmother. She made me play the piano. I hated music." Zola almost smiles. She imagines him, small, with black hair, sitting at the piano with an angry expression. "So that's why you banned music in the house?" she asks, immediately frightened by her own boldness. But he's not angry. That's why, he replies. The sound is irritating. It always has been. And the silence. The silence gives peace. But you watch me dance to the music, says Zola. I see, he agrees. Your music doesn't irritate me. He looks out the window. Zola looks at him. She sees his jawline, his dark hair, his tired eyes. And suddenly, she realizes this man is more than just a boss, more than just a leader. He's as lost as she is. Can I ask you a question? Zola says quietly. He turns his gaze to her. Why did you let me dance? He's silent for a long time. So long that Zola thinks he won't answer. Then he says, because there is life in your dancing, and there is none in this house. He stands up. The conversation is over. Go and rest, he says. I'll wait tonight. Zola gets up, takes the cups, and goes to the door. At the exit, she turns around. He stands by the window, his back to her. The same as the first time, but now she knows. He's not just looking out the window. He's waiting for the night. 2 days later, Zola receives a new assignment, cleaning the third floor. She's surprised. No one goes there. Mrs. Pak never sent staff above the second floor. But today, she says, we need to check the dust. It hasn't been cleaned in a while. Zola climbs the stairs. The third floor is dark. The windows are small, and there's little light. The carpets are old, and it smells of dust and closed spaces. She walks down the hallway, peering into the rooms. Ordinary bedrooms, some furniture under covers. Nothing interesting, until you reach the door at the end of the corridor. The door is unusual, not like all the others. White with a pattern. Stickers, flowers, animals, are at the children's eye level. Zola freezes. She comes closer. She tries to open it. It's locked. It's firmly locked, but the handle won't move. Zola stands and looks at the door. Children's stickers. This was a child's room. She remembers the photograph in his bedroom. A torn woman. And she understands. There was a family here. He had a woman and a child. And now they are gone. Zola steps away from the door. She continues cleaning, but her thoughts return to the white door with the stickers. What happened there? Where did they go? And why does he live alone in this huge house? She finishes work and goes downstairs. She thinks about it all day. In the evening, before her night shift, she decides to ask, but when she sees him in the kitchen, the words stick in her throat. He's sitting at the table, staring into space. His eyes are empty. His face is gray. He looks like he hasn't slept for days, like something inside him has broken. Zola sits down opposite, silent. He doesn't even notice her at first. Then he looks up. Dance, he says quietly, and Zola dances. Doesn't ask questions, doesn't talk about the door, just dances for him, because he sees that he needs this more than answers. A week passes. Zola dances every night. He doesn't always come, but often. He sits, watches, sometimes just closes his eyes and listens to music he doesn't like. Zola is getting used to this, to his silence, to his gaze, to the fact that something unnameable is happening between them, but the thought of the white door won't let go. One afternoon, when she's going up to the third floor to pick up some old things, she passes by again and freezes. The door is ajar. Zola stares at the crack and can't move. Her heart is pounding. She needs to leave. This is private. This is forbidden. But her legs carry her forward. She pushes the door. It opens with a quiet creak. Ash goes inside. This is a nursery, a real one. The walls are pink, with pictures. A canopy crib full of toys. A small table, a small chair. Dolls, cars, books. Everything is covered in dust. A thick layer, as if the room hadn't been opened for years. Zola stands and watches. On the crib lies a blanket, folded as if the baby had just been taken out. On the table sits a cup with dried liquid inside. Zola comes closer. She picks up a small toy, a stuffed bunny with a missing ear. The bunny is dusty and old, but it was once loved. Zola's head is buzzing. Who lived here? A little girl? Judging by the pink walls and dolls, a girl. His daughter? Where is she now? Why is the room frozen in time? She hears footsteps in the hallway. She quickly puts the hair back in place and runs out of the room. She closes the door and runs to the stairs. My heart is pounding so hard, it's ready to jump out. She knows she shouldn't have gone there. She knows it's dangerous. But now she can't forget what she saw. A dusty crib, a dried-out cup, toys waiting to be picked up. Zola has been out of sorts all day. She cleans, cooks, answers questions, but her thoughts are elsewhere. Before her eyes, she sees the pink room and the dusty hair with its missing ear. At night, she comes to the kitchen earlier than usual. She sits down and waits. He comes an hour later, sits opposite her, looks at her. What's wrong with you? He asks. You're different today. Zola looks at him. She wants to ask. The words are ready to burst from her lips. What's in that room? Who lived there? Where are they? But she sees his eyes. They're tired. So tired, he looks like he might collapse. There are dark circles under his eyes. His skin is pale. His lips are pressed together. He looks like a man carrying a burden too heavy for one person to bear. Zola opens her mouth and says, Nothing. I just didn't get enough sleep. He nods. It's unclear whether he believes it or not. Dance, he says. And Zola dances. To the music playing in her headphones, she moves, but her thoughts don't go away. She looks at him and thinks about the pain he carries inside. After the dance, he leaves without saying a word. Zola is left alone in the kitchen. She understands. She didn't ask because she was afraid. Afraid to see in his eyes something she couldn't bear. But the question remains, and now it will live in her forever. 2 days later, Zola picks up the laundry from his room. It's a routine procedure. Every 3 days, she collects the dirty clothes and takes them to the laundry room. Today, the basket contains several shirts, pants, and towels. Zola takes them all and goes downstairs. In the laundry room, she sorts clothes, checks pockets, fastens buttons, whites separately, colors separately. She picks up a light shirt, expensive, silk, and freezes. There are dark stains on the cuff. Not dirt, not food. Ash brings it closer to the light. My heart skips a beat. Blood. Dried. Dark. On the right cuff. On the inside. Zola stares at the stain and can't look away. That night, she saw him enter the house with a stain on his shirt comes flooding back. She wasn't sure then. Now she is. Her hands start to shake. She puts the shirt aside. She picks up the next one. This one has stains too, but smaller ones. Zola sits down on a chair in the laundry room. She breathes deeply, just like her mother taught her as a child when she was scared. She knew what he was doing. She had a hunch. But seeing it like this, in her own hands, wiping away that blood, that was something else entirely. She loads the shirts into the machine, pour in the detergent, turn it on, watches as the water fills the drum, and he thinks, whose blood is this? What happened that night? And how many more nights like this have there been? She doesn't want to know the answer, but the answers come to her. Zola sits in the laundry room, watching the washing machine spin. The laundry inside flickers with white and dark spots. She thinks about washing away the blood of a man she barely knows. The door opens. The woman who works in the kitchen enters. The same one, elderly, silent. Zola had seen her many times, but they had never spoken. The woman goes to the sink and washes her hands, long and thoroughly. Then she turns to Zola. You're the one who's at night, right? She asks quietly. Zola nods. The woman looks at her for a long moment. There's something in her eyes. Pity? A warning? Listen to me, girl, the woman says, almost in a whisper. She comes closer. Go away before it's too late. Zola looks at her. What do you mean, go away? That's what it means. Pack your things and leave. There's good money here, but it's not worth it. The woman speaks quietly, quickly, glancing at the door. I've been here for 5 years, she continues. I've seen a lot of maids. Good, bad, young, old. Some disappeared, just disappeared. There in the morning, gone in the evening. Zola felt cold inside. Why did they disappear? The woman shakes her head. I don't know. No one knows. But you dance for him at night. I heard from security. It's dangerous, girl. Very dangerous. She grabs Zola's hand. Her fingers are dry and hot. When he gets tired of watching, what will happen? When he gets bored, have you thought about that? Zola is silent. She wasn't thinking. Go away, the woman whispers. Right now, while you still can. She lets go of his hand and quickly walks out of the laundry room. Zola sits motionless. The washing machine hums, spinning the laundry. Inside, Zola feels empty and cold. She thinks about his eyes, about the way he looks at her when she dances, about how he heard about her mother, about the blood on the cuff. Who is he really? And who should we believe? That night, Zola comes into the kitchen. Her insides are shaking. The woman's words from the laundry room keep coming back to her. When will he get tired of it? Have you thought about that? She sits down on a chair and looks at the door, waiting. He arrives later than usual. He sits down opposite her. He looks at her. You're not okay today, he says. He doesn't ask. He states. Zola is silent. Then she gets up. I'll dance, she says. He nods. Zola turns on the music. She starts dancing. Slowly, smoothly, she comes closer to him, then moves away. She spins, moves her arms, and suddenly he makes a sudden movement. Too sudden. He falls to the floor, clutching his ankle. She sits on the floor, holding her leg and waiting. It's a test. She wants to see what he'll do. Chase her away? Get angry? Call security? He stands up, walks over to her, sits down next to her on the floor, right on the floor in his expensive clothes. Does it hurt? He asks. Zola looks at him. He's not angry. There's concern in his eyes. Real concern. Strong? He asks again. Let me see. He reaches out and gently touches her leg. His fingers are light and warm. He checks for swelling, pressing gently on the bone. Zola holds her breath. She feels his fingers on her skin, and the feeling is stronger than the pain. It doesn't seem broken, he says, but I need to see a doctor tomorrow. He looks at her, very close. There is darkness in his eyes, but in this darkness there is light. Why did you do this? He asks quietly. Zola is silent. She doesn't know what to answer. He looks for another second. Then he stands up. Rest today. Rest tomorrow. Until your leg gets better. He leaves. Zola sits on the floor alone. She tested him, and he passed the test. But now she doesn't know whether to be happy about this or to be even more afraid. Zola sits on the kitchen floor, looking at the door he left through. Her leg actually hurts. She hit it harder than she intended. But the pain isn't the main thing right now. The main thing was his fingers on her skin. Warm, careful, as if he were touching the most precious thing in his life. Zola rises, leaning on a chair. Limping, she goes to her room. She lies down on the bed and looks at the ceiling. She thinks about what happened, about his eyes when he looked at her, about how he sat down next to her on the floor, not thinking about expensive clothes. He's different, not what she thought. Or does she just want him to be different? Zola falls asleep with this thought. In the morning, she is awakened by a knock on the door. She opens it. No one is there. There is a bag on the floor. Zola brings it into the room and opens it. Inside are ointments, bandages, and plasters, and a small unsigned note. I'll check in 2 days. Zola clutches the note in her hand. She looks at the ointments. Dear ones, we don't have any of these in our medicine cabinet at home. She understands. It's from him. Of course it's from him. Who else could it be? She rubs ointment on her leg. She lies back down and thinks about how he cares about her. The man with blood on his shirts cares about her. The world is turning upside down. Zola hasn't left her room for 2 days. Mrs. Park tells her she can rest until she recovers. Others will do her work. Zola sits in her small room, looks out the window at the gray courtyard, and thinks a lot. She replays that night over and over in her head. His face when he touched her leg, his eyes, his fingers. She takes out the ointment and applies it to her leg again. It smells of medicine. It smells of him, even though he's not here. By the second day, she can already walk almost painlessly. In the evening, she dresses, in the clothes he gave her, and goes into the kitchen. She doesn't know if he'll come, but she wants to be there. He comes an hour later, sits down opposite her, looks at her leg. Did it pass? He asks. Almost, Zola answers. Show me. She rolls up her pant leg. He watches carefully, then nods. Tomorrow you'll start dancing. Rest today. Zola wants to object, but he is already getting up. Sit with me, she says. He freezes. He looks at her in surprise. Just sit, Zola repeats. Quietly, like we drank coffee that time. He sits back down. They sit in the kitchen, in the middle of the night, silent. Zola looks at him. He looks out the window, and there is something important in this silence, something that cannot be expressed in words. The morning after Zola returned to the kitchen, she woke up with a strange feeling. Something had changed. She opens her eyes and sees it right away. There's a box on the small table by the bed, a beautiful one, white, with a ribbon. Zola sits up, looks at the box. It wasn't here yesterday. She carefully opens it. Inside is a speaker, small but expensive. She'd seen one like it in an advert, but could never afford it. Zola takes it out and holds it in her hands. It's heavy and pleasant to the touch. She turns it on. The blue light glows. She knows who it's from. There's no note, no name, but it's him. Who else? Zola sits on the bed, holding the speaker, unsure what to think. No one had ever given her such gifts. No one had ever cared for her like this. She remembers the woman at the laundromat saying, "When will he get tired of it?" But now, looking at the speaker, she can't believe he'll get tired of it. In the evening, she takes the speaker into the kitchen. She places it on the table. She turns it on. The music sounds clear, loud, and beautiful. He comes, sees the speaker, doesn't say anything, just sits down in his seat. Zola dances to the music from his gift, and she feels like this is the most important dance of her life. When the music ends, she comes up to him. "Thank you," he says quietly. He looks at her, silent, but she reads the answer in his eyes. And this answer is warmer than any words. Zola wakes up during the day to noise. Not the usual noise she's used to. Different. Loud voices, footsteps, slamming doors. She gets up, goes to the door, and opens it slightly. The hallway is empty, but sounds are coming from the first floor. Men's voices. She recognizes one. It's him. The second is unfamiliar, harsh, loud. Zola goes out into the hallway. Cautiously, she approaches the stairs. The voices grow louder. They speak his language, quickly, angrily. Zola doesn't understand the words, but she understands the intonations. They are arguing, violently. She descends the stairs, hiding behind the railing. Down in the hall, two people stand. He's dressed in dark clothes, calm but tense. And the other man is in an expensive suit, fair-skinned, older, with an angry expression. They're shouting at each other. The man in the suit is waving his arms, pointing toward the stairs, where Zola is hiding, and suddenly she hears her name. The man in the suit pronounces it clearly, with an accent, but understandably. Zola. He's shouting something about her, pointing, but the other guy is silent. He stands and listens. Then he speaks quietly, but in a way that sends shivers down Zola's spine. The man in the suit turns and leaves. He slams the door so hard the glass rattles. Zola sits behind the stairs, her hands pressed to her chest. Her heart is pounding. Why does this man know her name? What did he say about her? Why was he angry? She hears footsteps. He's heading for the stairs. Zola freezes, but it's too late to hide. He looks up and sees her. They look at each other for a second. There's weariness and something else in his eyes. Anxiety? Go into the room, he says quietly. Stay there. Don't come out. Zola nods and runs upstairs. In her room, she sits on the bed and tries to breathe evenly. Nothing works. She heard her name. Only he, Mrs. Park, and the guards knew her name in this house. Where was that man from? And why was he angry because of her? Unanswered questions. And that makes it even scarier. After that incident, Zola can't calm down. She works during the day, but she keeps looking around. She looks into the hallways, listens for footsteps. She feels like she's being watched, not just by the security guards who are always nearby, someone else. She begins to notice small things. The door to her room is ajar a little wider than she usually leaves it. Things aren't arranged exactly as she usually put them. Once, she thought she heard someone breathing outside the door when she woke up. Zola tries to convince herself it's just nerves, that she's making it up, but the fear doesn't go away. On the third day, she decides to check the room. For real. She waits for everyone to leave. She locks the door. She begins to examine every corner. Under the bed, behind the closet, in the ventilation. Nothing. She's about to stop when she notices the baseboard against the wall. One piece is loosely attached, as if it had been torn out and put back. Zola comes over and sits down on the floor. She tries to pry the baseboard up with her fingers. It gives in. She peers through the crack. There is a small object lying there, black, shiny. Zola takes it out. It's a voice recorder, small but real. The red light blinks. It's working, recording. Zola looks at him and can't move. Her room is bugged. Someone is listening to what she says, what she does, how she breathes. She wants to crush him, throw him out, trample him, but she stops. Thoughts flash by as fast as bullets. Who set it up? Him? Security? That man in the suit? Why? Zola sits on the floor with a voice recorder in her hand and doesn't know what to do. Zola looks at the recorder. The red light burns steadily, calmly, recording her every movement, every breath. She wants to turn it off, press the button, and throw it against the wall. But something stops her. If she turns it off, whoever's listening will realize what she's found. It will get worse. She'll think of something else, hide the camera, or do something worse. Zola thinks. Long, hard, like never before in her life. Then he makes a decision. She doesn't turn off the recorder. She brings it to her lips and begins to speak. Hello, she says quietly. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're listening, but I want you to know. She pauses, swallows. I'm scared here. I'm scared every day. I don't know these people. I don't know the rules. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. I want to leave. I want to go home. Where my mother is, where my sisters are, where I understand what's going on. Her voice trembled, but she continued. I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid of what he does. I'm afraid of the blood on his shirts. I'm afraid that one day he'll get tired of looking at me. And then, she falls silent. She puts the recorder back behind the baseboard. She closes it, sits on the bed, and looks at the wall. She told the truth, the whole truth. Now whoever listens knows. Zola doesn't know what will happen next, but she feels a strange relief, as if a burden has been lifted. All that's left to do is wait. At night, Zola comes to the kitchen. She doesn't know why. Habit? Ritual? Fear of missing something important? She sits down at the table. The speaker is still in place, but she doesn't turn on the music. She just waits. He comes in an hour. He has a voice recorder in his hand. That very one. Small, black. He holds it between his fingers, like the most ordinary thing. Zola looks at the recorder, then at him. Her heart sinks, into her heels, into the floor. Here it is. Now. He sits down opposite her, places the tape recorder on the table between them. Silence. Zola is also silent, waiting. Do you really want to leave? He asks quietly. The voice is even, emotionless, but there's something in the eyes, something she's never seen before. Zola doesn't know what to say. She spoke into a tape recorder when she thought she was speaking to an invisible enemy, and now he's sitting in front of her and asking her directly. She begins and falls silent. You said you were afraid of me, he continues, that you were afraid of blood, that you wanted to go home. He looks at her, waiting. Is this true? He asks. Zola is silent for a long time. Then she looks up. I don't know, she says honestly. I'm really scared, but I don't know what's more, you or what will happen if I leave. He nods. He takes the recorder from the table and squeezes it in his fist. I didn't listen, he says. I never listened. Zola looks at him in confusion. It's an old system, he says. They installed it when the house was built, in every staff room, for safety. He looks at the tape recorder in his hand. I forgot about her. I didn't think about her for years. I never listened to the recordings. Not a single one. Zola tries to understand. Should she believe it or not? They brought me this today. He picks up the recorder. They said they found the recording. I turned it on. I heard your voice. He looks into her eyes. I didn't know this system worked. I didn't know anyone was listening. I only found out today when they brought me the recording. Zola is silent. There is noise in her head. Who was listening? She asks quietly. Security. They have access. They listen whenever they want. I didn't give such an order. I completely forgot such a thing existed. He puts the recorder on the table. I came to ask you directly. Not through recordings, not through security. Do you want to leave? Zola looks at him. At his face, tired, pale. At his eyes, in which there is no cold now. Only a question, and something else. Fear? Is he afraid of her answer? I don't know, she says again. I really don't know. He nods. Then don't leave today. Think about it. You'll decide tomorrow. He gets up and leaves. The tape recorder remains on the table. Zola picks it up. She looks at the small black box that nearly destroyed everything. She doesn't know whether to believe him or not. But for some reason, she wants to believe him. Zola sits alone in the kitchen, a voice recorder in her hand. Her head is empty. She's trying to put the pieces together. He didn't know about the wiretapping. He only found out today. He came to her himself and asked her directly. But how could she know if it was true? Maybe he'd been watching her from the very beginning. Maybe this was all a game? Zola stands up. Her legs won't obey her. She goes to the door, then back to the table. She sits down, stands up again. Everything inside is screaming. Who to believe? What to do? She remembers her words on the recording. I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid of blood. He heard it. He knows now that she knows. If he's dangerous, now is the worst time. If not, Zola can't think. She needs to leave. Right now. Away from this house. From this kitchen. From him. She runs out of the kitchen. Runs down the hallway. Doesn't look back. For the first time in many nights, she breaks their ritual. She leaves without dancing. She leaves without saying goodbye. She locks the door to her room, sits down on the floor, and stares into space. There's emptiness and fear inside, and something else that feels like pain. Zola doesn't sleep all night. She sits on the floor and looks at the door, waiting for him to come, but he doesn't. Towards morning, she makes a decision. She will leave, now, before it's too late. She stands up and takes out an old backpack. She throws her things in there. Not much, just the essentials. Documents, money, a phone. She holds the speaker he gave her for a long time. Then she puts it back on the table. She doesn't pick it up. She leaves the room. The hallway is empty. The guards are probably at their posts. Zola walks towards the exit. Her heart is pounding so hard, it seems to be heard throughout the entire house. She reaches the door, opens it, steps out into the street. The air is cold, morning. The sky is brightening. Ashes are running towards the gate. The gate is closed. Tall, iron, with sharp bars. She pulls the handle. Locked. Zola looks around. There's a guard booth on the right. The light is on. She approaches and knocks on the window. The security guard opens the door. He is young and has an indifferent face. "Open the gate," Zola says. "I need to get out." The guard looks at her and shakes his head. "I can't. The gates are closed at night. The owner's orders." "I quit," says Zola. "I'm leaving." "Open up." The guard shrugs. "I can't do it without his permission. Ms. Pak will come in the morning. Then you decide." Zola wants to scream, to pound her fists, but she realizes it's useless. She moves away from the booth. She stands at the gate, looking out through the bars. There's freedom there, so close, but out of reach. She hears footsteps behind her. She turns around. He's standing 10 meters away, wearing the same clothes he had on last night. He's looking at her. Ash freezes. He comes closer, stops next to her, looks at the gate, then at her. "You've really decided to leave," he says. He doesn't ask. He just states it. Zola is silent. She doesn't know what to say. "I won't keep you," he says quietly. "If you want to leave, go. In the morning. But not now." Zola looks at him. "Why not now?" He takes a step closer. He glances back at the guard booth, then speaks more quietly. "It's dangerous in the city. You can't go now." "What do you mean, dangerous?" Zola feels fear rising again. "There are people there looking for me, and everyone connected to me. If you go out now, tonight, alone," he trails off. Zola looks into his eyes. There is no lie there. There is only fatigue and anxiety. "I beg you," he says. "Trust me. One night. Just one night. And in the morning, if you want, I'll take you wherever you want." Zola stands and looks at him. The wind ruffles her hair. It's cold, but she doesn't feel it. "Why should I believe you?" she asks quietly. "Because if I wanted to hurt you," he says, "I would have done it a long time ago. You danced for me every night. I could have done anything, but I only watched." He falls silent, then adds, "Go inside. Get some sleep. We'll talk in the morning." He turns and leaves. He doesn't look back. Zola stands alone at the gate. She looks out through the bars. Then she slowly walks back into the house. Zola isn't sleeping. She's lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. It's getting light outside. At 8 in the morning, she gets up, washes, gets dressed, goes out into the hallway. The house is quiet. She goes to the dining room, where the staff usually eats breakfast. She turns on the small TV in the corner, just to occupy her thoughts. The news is on TV. The announcer speaks her language, broadcasting a local channel for foreigners. Zola looks at the screen and can't believe her eyes. The screen shows the city center, a street she knows. The airport bus stops there. Now it's filled with ambulances. People in uniform are running and shouting. Dark spots on the pavement. The announcer speaks quickly and excitedly. "There was a shootout in the city center overnight. According to preliminary reports, 6 people were killed and more than 10 were injured. Police are searching for the attackers." Zola stares at the screen, unable to look away. 6 people, 10 injured, in the city center, where she wanted to go at night. She sits down on a chair. Her legs are wobbly. Her hands are shaking. If he hadn't stopped her, if he had opened the gate, if she had gone out alone, at night, into this hell. Zola covers her face with her hands. He knew. He knew it was dangerous there. He stopped her. He saved her. She's sitting in the dining room, watching the news, and can't believe it. The world outside this house is scarier than she thought. And he's not the enemy. Zola sits in the dining room and watches the same thing on TV over and over again. 6 dead, 10 injured, night in the center. She thinks about him, about how he stood at the gate and said, "Trust me, for one night." He didn't explain. He didn't threaten. He just asked. Zola gets up, walks down the hallway, climbs up to the 2nd floor, to his office. Knocking. Voice from inside. "Come in." She opens the door. He is sitting at the table, papers in front of him. He looks up. "Have you seen the news?" he says. He doesn't ask. Zola nods. "There are 6 people," she says quietly. I could have been there. He is silent. You knew, Zola continues. You knew it would be dangerous. I knew it could be dangerous, he corrects. I didn't know for sure, but I felt it. Zola comes closer, looks at him. Who are you? She asks. Really? He looks at her for a long moment. You know who, he says. You saw the shirts. You heard the conversations. You're not stupid. Zola is silent. I resolve issues, he says quietly. Issues between people. Not always good ones. Not always legal. People get paid for it. People get hated for it. Sometimes they get shot for it. He gets up and goes to the window. I'm no angel, Zola. I've done bad things. A lot of bad things. But I won't touch you. Never. He turns around. Do you believe? Zola looks at him. At his back. At his dark hair. At the hands that held the gun and presented her with the speaker. I believe, she says quietly, because if you don't trust him, there's no one to trust at all. At night, Zola comes to the kitchen. She stands in the doorway for a long time, looking at the empty table, at the chair where he usually sits. Then she goes in and sits down in her place. She doesn't turn on the music. She just sits and waits. He arrives half an hour later. He stops at the door, surprised. You're here, he says. I'm here, Zola answers. He sits down opposite. They are silent. The kitchen is quiet. Only the refrigerator hums. Zola looks at him, at his face, which has become so familiar over these weeks, at his eyes, which are no longer cold. She stands up and approaches him. He looks up at her, not understanding. Zola sits down next to him on the floor. She rests her head on his shoulder. She closes her eyes. He pauses for a second. Then slowly, carefully, he places his hand on her head, strokes her red curls. They sit on the kitchen floor, huddled close. No music, no words. Just two people who found each other in the dark. Zola feels the warmth of his body, hears his heartbeat, and for the first time in a long time, she's not afraid. Light is spreading inside. Morning. Zola wakes up in her room and doesn't remember how she got here. She only remembers his shoulder, his hand in her hair, his breath. She smiles. During the day, she works as usual, cleaning, cooking, greeting Mrs. Park. But inside, she's different, easy, calm. That evening, she puts on the clothes he gave her. She takes the speaker she'd left behind, but later took with her. She goes into the kitchen. He's already there, sitting in his seat, looking out the window. He turns around when she enters. I want to try something today, Zola says. He raises an eyebrow. Zola places the speaker on the table. She turns on some music, slow, calm. Then he comes up to him and extends his hand. Dance with me, she says. He looks at her hand, then at her. I don't know how, he says. I'll teach you, Zola replies. He hesitates for a second. Then he stands up and takes her hand. Zola places his hand on her waist. She places hers on his shoulder. They begin to move, slowly, awkwardly. He steps on her foot, once, twice. I'm sorry, he says. Zola looks at his serious face and can't help but laugh, sincerely, loudly, from the heart. He looks at her in surprise. Then the corners of his lips lift. He smiles. For the first time, they dance, badly, awkwardly, stepping on each other's toes. But it's their dance, their first together. Music is playing. The kitchen is lit with soft light. It's night outside, and they simply move in a rhythm that only two people understand.